Welcome back. President Trump calling on House and Senate Republicans to pass the big, beautiful bill quickly, get it to his desk before the July 4th holiday. He calls this an historic opportunity, and on Truth Social, he writes, "We will take a massive step in balancing our budget by enacting the largest mandatory spending cut ever, and Americans will get to keep more of their money with the largest tax cut ever, and no longer taxing tips, overtime, or Social Security for seniors, something 80 million voters supported in November." The House Freedom Caucus, meanwhile, is demanding a vote on the first White House rescission package coming today, which could not codify $9.4 billion in DOGE cuts. Joining me now is Missouri Congressman and the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, Chairman Jason Smith. Mr. Chairman, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Great to be with you, Maria.
Can you give us a sense of what you're expecting to come out of the Senate? What is your reaction to this pushback from Senators Ron Johnson and Rick Scott and Rand Paul about the cost?
First off, let me say that in the House, we have the very same differences that the Senate has, and that is we started the process knowing that there was a couple people that would be hard to ever get to a yes. I believe that Chairman Crapo, Leader Thune has that same instance over in the Senate. There's a couple senators that will never get to yes. They can only lose 3 in order to pass that. In the House, we could only lose 3. What I will say is that if you vote against the bill that we passed out of the House, the one big beautiful bill 12 days ago, you will be voting for the largest tax increase in the history of America on every single American. You will be voting on $0 in spending cuts. The bill that we passed out of the House had $1.6 trillion of mandatory spending cuts, the most spending cuts in the history of this country by more than 400%. If you vote against this bill, you're voting not to secure our border. And if you vote against this bill, you're not voting to cut regulations. So I hope every senator over there does the right thing and deliver for the 77 million Americans that made sure that they had the Senate majority.
I think this is a really important point that you make, and I think that the way you phrase it is right, and that is what you're doing is trying to stop the largest tax increase that we've seen. So, stopping the taxes from going higher is important on so many levels, not to mention the markets and the economy. But, Mr. Chairman, now that we're still in the quote-unquote sausage-making phase and they are looking for other areas to cut, what do you believe could be realistic in terms of the Senate beefing up the spending cuts? I mean, as you have the CBO projecting $22 trillion in a 10-year deficit, $2.2 trillion a year, and something like $60 trillion in debt by 2035. I mean, are there areas that you believe the Senate could make this better?
Absolutely. I encourage the senators to make this better. I've seen senators on your shows over the weekend say that we need to cut trillions of more dollars. I'm all about cutting, but you know what? You need to make sure as a senator that you can get 50 other of your colleagues to join with you. You have to thread a needle. You have to balance it. If you can get more spending cuts, more power to you, and I would love to see it. But start naming what those spending cuts are. Don't name numbers. Name the items that you're going to cut. The House did that. We provided $1.6+ trillion of cutting. In the Ways and Means space, Maria, we cut more than $1 trillion. $1 trillion of bad tax policy, including more than $500 billion gutting the IRA and the Green New Deal scam. So it can be done. If the senators think they can do better, great. I love to see them deliver it, but they have to have 50 votes in order to deliver. They need to carefully thread that needle and balance it. But failure is not an option. The American people will not stand for that.
Well, because you're also threading a needle in the House. I mean, look, Ron Johnson said that he's working on a report and he's going to have facts and figures in the report because that's what's missing in this debate. And you're right, that is what's missing in this debate. Let's hear specifically what you want to cut and how much it's going to cost. Because if you're going to cut things that were just voted on in the House where you had to wrangle people to get their yes vote, they're going to say, well, wait a second, this is not the bill that I thought it was. Now I'm a no vote in the House.
Maria, people don't want reports. People want action. It is go time. We have hit the rubber to the pavement. The Senate needs to, if they want additional cuts, name them, get the votes, and send it back to us. If not, help us deliver the largest cuts in the history of America by 400%. $1.6 trillion. You were talking about the DOGE cuts earlier of $9 billion. $9 billion. What we cut 12 days ago was $1.6 trillion.
Right.
And people are complaining about that.
Yeah.
If we do not pass this bill, there will be zero cuts, Maria.
Yeah, no, I know. And that's why I made the point earlier, okay, rescission package is fine, nice, but it's not going to really, it's not going to move the needle in terms of what you're doing. But Ron Johnson came up with another idea, which, of course, has been sort of looming in the background the whole time, and that is put President Trump's campaign promises of no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime in a second bill later on in the year. Here's what the senator said to me on Sunday. Watch this. Do you think this is doable by the end of July and get the bill passed?
Yeah, if we split this thing into two parts, border defense, take what spending cuts that we've already identified, bank those, extend current tax law, take an automatic tax increase off the table, increase the debt ceiling for about a year. By the way, that'll be a shocking amount, about $2.5 trillion just to get us into March of 2026. That ought to tell people we better fix this.
So there you go. He's talking about two bills. Then I spoke with Mike Rounds the other day. He said, well, we could do it in three bills. So this is not what the House voted for, Mr. Chairman. How would that fly in the House if the Senate came back to you and said, well, we want this in two bills?
It would be dead on arrival, Maria. The ship has sailed. President Trump has said one big, beautiful bill. I hope every Republican senator will not stand in the president's priorities. This is the fastest and quickest approach to deliver all of the campaign promises that Trump promised 77 million Americans that sent him up there. Permanency of the expiring Trump tax cuts, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, tax relief for seniors, lower tax rates for products produced in the United States. That's all in this bill, but we're also securing the border, cutting regulation, and we're also creating the Golden Dome, protecting the United States. It is a dream bill of Republican priorities that we're going to deliver, and it better not be stalled in the Senate by random senators saying, let's do 3, 4, 8 bills. Yeah. We got one bill. Get it on the president's desk by July 4th, and the American people will have a lot to celebrate about.
So we're going to talk with Palmer Luckey in a few minutes about the Golden Dome and what this means in terms of all the spending on defense. Our audience loves it, and we are going to get into it. But let me get your take on this, because one measure in that big, beautiful bill takes aim at foreign investors. You say it's a way to keep other nations in check. What can you tell us about this?
You know, unfortunately, the Biden administration a couple years ago entered into an agreement with numerous other countries through OECD that would suck away $120 billion of profits from U.S. companies. U.S. companies it was going to suck away. So this provision is a countermeasure to those countries, because on the first day in office, President Trump did an executive order rescinding that agreement and telling those countries they need to respect our tax code, including our global minimum tax. And if they don't, the language that we have within this bill, we will countermeasure with tax increases on their businesses.
All right. We will be watching all of this and certainly talk with you along the way. Mr. Chairman, great to see you this morning. Thank you, sir.
Good to see you always, Maria.
All right. Congressman Jason Smith. Stay with